We are getting ready to begin the public forum for the school budget. We have. This is part of the school committee meeting. And we're recording this separately, so we're capturing the focus on the budget. And so when you folks are ready, it's just about 6 o'clock.
Right. Well, I was specifically asked to do a short introduction to the presentation that we'll be hearing from Melissa and Carol. Melissa being our business administrator and Carol being our superintendent. They have put together a great slideshow that will explain not just the budget that is proposed for next year, for fiscal year 26, but first starts with a lot of the successes of the education here in Warwick for this year. Some of our lessons learned over this year and the previous year. And of course, the valuable reintroduction to the vision for our school. I'm just thrilled to be saying that we're preparing to start year 3 of the Warwick Community School being open, not just reopened, but opened under our own district, under a vision that was worked very hard on by just a huge talented group of folks. So when we go through and we talk about the kind of education our kids are having here in town, it is a vision that is very valued locally. When Carol and Melissa and the entire school team put together opportunities for grants, they are used in a way that fits the vision for Warwick and the needs in Warwick. And again, I'm just very happy to be introducing both Melissa and Carol to be going through our budget for next year. So one of the things I want to focus on before I turn it over to them is that grants have been a very valuable part of how we support our schools. And Carol and her team are very good at looking for those opportunities. We do have a lot of grant funding supporting our students this year. And as we go through the budget, you will see that not all of those grants are included for next year. But you certainly can be assured that Carol and the team will continue to be looking for grant funding that fit the mission of our school going forward. So the budget that we're presenting is, I have written down not just a level services, but a level services and a level quality. So the hope is to continue the quality of the education that we're currently supporting. So that's the focus for the budget going forward next year. We will be voting on the budget next week, and certainly we don't have anybody in person with us, but if anybody is watching and has any questions or has any ideas they want to bring forward, you are welcome to reach out to any one of us that you see on the screen today or stop in the school. We will be voting on this budget at our meeting next Wednesday, March 26th. The meeting is at 4 students. So did I miss anything?
No, it's
All right, well, welcome to our presentation. Carol will start off.
Thanks, Sam. I'm direct permission to share.
Thanks.
So what is our education most? So very much into the long range plan. We really continue to develop a curriculum that is really deeply engaging, based on research and really deepening students' critical thinking. One of the most amazing things about this school, given our commitment as well as our small size, is because we can be very student-centered. We have a very personalized approach to the instruction for every student. Probably my favorite part about this school is that it is project-based and students' learning is very much inspired. The 25 acres of woodland campus surround us. I spend a lot of time outside every day. Another big part of our commitment is learning with and from the community and really working towards social justice, making the world a better place in little and large ways. Finally, one of the things that we really believe in is educators, including myself, constantly modeling learning. You know, an example, I'll go into classrooms, for example, with my superintendent mentor and really talk to the students about the importance of lifelong learning. So they're really seeing that on a daily basis. Here's our mission and vision. Do you mind reading it for us, Jess?
Sure. Mission and vision. The Warwick Community Elementary School and District is committed to providing an innovative, engaging, and hands-on education to its students. Through nature-centered, place, and project-based learning, students will learn in and about the environment on our 25-acre woodland campus. Students will learn to think critically and develop solutions for challenges being faced both in Warwick and around the globe, especially those related to the environment and social justice.
So, this mission and vision really reflects the mission and vision of the town. Whenever I meet a new Warwick residents, they really reflect this mission and vision as much as possible. We're really integrating local community members into the school to help with a lot of this mission. Many ways we really strive this year are related to teaching and learning. First, we have created so many project-based units that are really, really wonderful. We have been able to do this in collaboration with the Antioch University, which really is sort of the nation's leading university when it comes to nature-centered education. So teachers, they all have the minimum project-based units, really focusing in on nature. Hi, welcome. And they are continuing to be great. In fact, first and second graders. Hi, first and one. How are you? Do you like the training? Sure. Brand logic-based and right down school. If anyone ever really knows that or works because connects on this. Was really new and exciting this year was the creation of a junior kindergarten program. We've had 3, 4 years being part of the school, which has been really exciting.
So can you explain what junior kindergarten means?
Sure. So kindergarten, it's basically preschool, but it's an academic and nature-based approach.
Okay, because I've been a preschool teacher for more than 30 years, but I just never heard that term, and it's always been academic. So.
But another really amazing accomplishment this year is we have Louise down our community. She has been doing a full and Gilliam training for all of our teachers. So they're currently in their practice. And at the end of her, she gets me that every one of our full-time teachers is already Gilliam, which really for years is going to be a great benefit to our students that they're reading. So they are also really, really proud of students at this school for scoring for their career, growing faster in both reading than the national average on the math assessments, which is really wonderful. We're continuing with our artists and residents. So last year we were able to host 2. This year we had 4. And they were from all around the
And did you write grants for them?
Good. Cultural.
Good. Yeah.
And to reach out. We have a lot of turnover in our first year. This set of really exceptional teachers will be continuing next year. Finally, one of the things that we started this year was having collegial visits. So the teachers, in addition to having observations by the principal and myself, they're all observing one another and giving one another questions.
No, I had just not ever heard that term.
David, come on.
Hi,
Does everybody know Later?
Chair.
Hi, and your name is
Carol.
Carol, so you're the famous Carol.
But I am Carol.
Well, I did want to talk to you. That was one reason I came tonight. You are, everybody loves you.
Oh,
I always hear wonderful things about you. Yeah.
Thanks.
Nice to meet you. I just some humor at the old school. I'm the person who wrote first grants and got our schools a gym program and an art program. Yeah, because they weren't part of the school at all. Yeah,
We might have to.
that was a long while back. So it's nice to hear that that's,
Yeah, they've done such a good job.
Yeah.
Of finding grants and applying and
Yeah.
receiving them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's some photos. So I was hearing me and Melissa talk all night. Students, like the students. Was when first and second graders finished their was Fries's project-based learning unit on paleontology. They actually made their own fossils using the same process that paleontologists use. Some believe in David, were you able to make the musical?
I did not.
Student on Revolutionary War was to place it. And here's some artists in residence. We had Joe Samar Matsumoto, who was talking to the students about portraiture. You can see all of his amazing portraits right here in the foreground. Completely amazing. This is Molly. She was coordinating all of the visits, but she also is an amazing artist herself. And here is all the folks who were new this year. You can see all the classroom teachers there at the middle, as well as our principal. Well, there's some principal next to you. It's Brady, who's our special education administrator, incredibly talented. She is the person who was behind winning the $100,000 grant you may have read about in the paper the other day. Then we have Melissa, who's here with us tonight, the business administrator. And these are some photos you can see. In addition to being part of some really enriching professional learning, we actually try to have a professional learning model type of learning we want the students to experience. It's very experiential. And there is some really amazing accomplishments related to finances and operations. We found now it's a 501c3, have already raised probably close to $8,000. He got a perfect rating on our first audit from the Department of Education here in Massachusetts. It was focused specifically on special education and civil rights. That perfect rating was very much thanks to Dr. Brady. We won, tons of grants, including the one I just highlighted. It was $100,000 to really support the social emotional well-being of families and students. We purchased a really wonderful 100% electric EV bus, thanks to Jason and really leading the way. And we have a brand new policy. It's just starting to allow students from out of state to be able to tuition. Folks have any questions?
I have a question about that, and I was pleased. And what happens if someone wants to bring in special ed kids?
That's a really good question. Do you want me to answer that?
Well, I can tell you how we've crafted the policy and the paperwork. The nitty gritty of what happens in terms of supporting those families, and if it does come up, is gonna be.
Well, there's a good
tricky,
chance it will. I can tell you that.
Yeah, but the paperwork, including both the overarching policy and also the agreements that the parents sign, is that those costs are the responsibilities of the families. That doesn't mean that the staff here wouldn't support them in finding the resources they need,
Mhm.
but that we have had to protect ourselves from the potential expense.
And, well, that seems reasonable. Is there any chance that whatever program or town they're coming from would share their money? As what has happened in the past when kids aren't special ed?
We haven't gotten there yet.
Say that's in the works, over time,
Mhm.
we're gonna be open to all avenues
Yep.
of.
Because I'm asking because I know people who said, oh, I've got sped kids, I'd like to send them there. 25 kids in the school, it will be ideal. So
So-
that's why I say I know that it will be coming up.
Yeah, and
In my 9 years on Pioneer School Committee, trying to make the numbers work, that was something I pushed for, and the answer from a succession of superintendents at Pioneer, and from the other side of the water, those who would be paying, is their attitude is, nope,
Mhm.
bring them back, bring them home, we'll take care of
Yeah.
it, we have the resources, we're not sharing your money with you.
And usually there's never enough money for special ed, so people
Right.
do, they can't really afford.
Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you for that little insight, David.
Just, you guys, what you see around really nice logo, thanks to Diana and Jess. And it's hopefully, I'm starting to see this logo as well. It's a logo of our new foundation. And this is the final, I promise. Because set accomplishments really related to family engagement with students. We have reached our parent advisory council for special education advisory. They are really active, which is very exciting, doing a lot for the school. Things that $100,000 grant is paying for in the data gathering dashboard. So when you look up a particular student, we'll be able to see everything about them, right? So you have to look here, to learn about the students' attendance. You have to look over here to learn how the students been doing academically. It's gonna put it all together. One of our favorite things are the personalized learning things. The student in the school has one of the students really now personal is that we can speak this help. It's good, yeah. One thing that we've really done a lot this year, more than this, is focusing on the secondary options and really making sure the students and families understand you do have choices and taking the students to see all those other choices. Yeah, continuing a lot of traditions and starting new ones, bring in more and more community members. Just some photos of lots of community events this year. And there's three guiding principles that we were really thinking about and putting together this new budget. First, we have found a really exceptional teaching faculty. We want to hang on to them. We also want to be sure they have a living wage, and we want it to be aligned to the increases folks are having across town. So in this current budget, everyone is receiving a 2.5% increase. Second, given that there's a lot of instability at the federal level right now, and a lot of changing decisions, we have tried to be very conservative in terms of our assumptions when it comes to federal dollars. So places where we have more federal dollars, we're putting in some contingencies to really plan nicely. Then finally, we tried to be really creative, making some cuts where we could, while not in any way diminishing the student or family experience. Those were sort of the guide principles that we this budget. Okay, Melissa, turn it to you.
Okay, so here are some lessons we learned in the budget year of 25-26. We had some. Sorry, was anybody asking any questions? No. Okay. All right. So one of the things that we just checked, change happens. The budget, like it's like a roadmap, but like we have to allow some flexibility throughout the process. We may have a student that comes in that has some more needs, and sometimes we have additional, like a new student coming in. So we have to be flexible in how we can allocate funds to make things happen for the year. The grants should really be used not as a source of to supply operational income, but more as to enhance programs that we currently have whenever possible. Because sometimes think about this way, we do have our costs with special education, that we have IDA, which is a grant that is going to enhance and allow students with disabilities to have more access to different programs that they need according to their IP.
Excuse me, but it's just really hard to hear, to understand.
I haven't
you
understood a word
caption-
she said.
Can you caption it?
Here.
Do you want me to? Let me see if I take off my earphones. That's gonna be easier for you because I tried to lower my volume because it was a little bit loud. You mentioned before, so let me just test it out here. Can you hear me better now?
Way better.
Okay.
Before you sounded like a big chicken.
So
All right. Maybe I need a new headphone. I don't know. I thought this one was good, but thank you.
Oh, that's so much better, Melissa.
Yeah. That's great.
All right, we had to restructure some codes for DESE end of the year report. We do have the DESE end of year report, which is a requirement by DESE that we have to show it to them, everything that we have spent throughout the year and like where we have spent. So it's a very detailed report that we have to file every end of the year to make sure DESE knows where our money is going. And that is also a tool to let taxpayers know where the money is really going. The Student Opportunity Act, that's another thing that it has been added a few years ago to help students with low income through like a revenue source that we have sometimes more funds when we have students that have a low income. So it's very important that we have a good match and make sure we capture all the low income students that we have in our district. You can go to the next, please. Here are some key points that we look for 2026. We have our revenues decreasing from one year to another by 58%. So that was a huge, like over like more than half reduction in our revenues. And that's something we cannot control because basically some of the revenue that we're talking about that we have reduced comes from grants, and that's something we cannot control. Is like what the entitlement grants, whatever they offer us, we're taking it. So that's where you're gonna see our revenues like going down the way, like Carol's mentioning, that we are kind of being conservative in terms when it comes to federal money because we saw that big already percentage reduction from one year to another. In FY26 is going to be the last year for our new school ventures grant. That brings us like about 40,000 a year, right? So we have had this grant for the last 2026 is going to be the third year and the last one, and that revenue source is $40,000 less that we're going to have after FY26. Just thinking, ahead. We do have our new inclusive preschool classroom program, as Kara already mentioned. We do also have measurements that we're trying to do, like just for cost savings and to provide sending like special education students out of district. We started this program as a way to help one like special student, like a special education student that needed that program, and we're continuing that program as Carrie already mentioned. But the good news is that, which is something that we always want to make sure that we focus our efforts, is to make sure that our biggest percentage in terms of expense is going to directly serve our students, and we have accomplished that. All right, so here's going to be our slide. Is going to show the appropriation for 26 funding. So that's pretty much going to show like what is the town receiving for Chapter 70 as net, because when the state sends like Chapter 70, a percentage is going to be local contribution, which is the town is going to provide to us, and the other percentage is going to be what the state's going to provide to us. So right now we are like this year for 26, we're at 32% in Chapter 78, and we are at local contribution at 68%. It's not much different from last year, but I just want to mention that we are calculating that the Chapter 70 offsetting what they have to send it to, like school choice tuition in charter school tuition. So we still have like a 68% that needs to come from local funding. That means from the towns. All right. So here's the revenue change that I mentioned before as a highlight, where our revenue estimate for 26 is actually going down by 58%. So each one of the lines you can see there, like for example, like school lunch, that's just the lunch we received from Teachers Day at school. That's local, and that's 545. We're keeping about the same. For 26, federal revenue, as you can see, is 15,704. Like it's still an estimate because the year hasn't ended yet for 25, but it's pretty much going to be about the same with the number of students. So we want to be make sure we don't change much. That will only change if we serve way more meals, which is not the case. We have the state revenue fund, which is we're also keeping about the same for next year. The pre-K preschool program, junior kindergarten, and Carol mentioned, We had $12,000 estimated for this year, 12,833. We are estimating to have more, and that's because there was like a very minutious work from, like Carol and Jazz going back to the families, seeing who's gonna be here for 26, who is not. So that's how we get to estimated 23,510 for the preschool program. And those are the other grants we have, like Title II. We only get 751 this year. We have to see where we're gonna land because that was a pretty small grant. I'm not sure if we're still gonna have it for next year. IDA revenue, which is 24 and 25 that you see there from carryover from prior years. We are keeping at about $10,000 because again, we're being conservative, and from 24 to 25, we already had a reduction. So we are not expecting that number to be very big for next year. Early childhood, we have 302 and 300. That's from one year that carry into the next year. That's why you see there twice, because it's FY24 and FY25. But we are spending all that money down for this year, 25. So in 26, we're not gonna have any carry forward. That's what I'm saying for 26. We're gonna spend this year because we need to. And then we're only gonna have probably about the same for next year. The IEP grant, which is the grant for professional development for IEP grant, we got 2,500. And again, that was down from 4,500 that we had in 24. So that's already like there was 5,400 for 24 and now 2,500 for 25. We're expecting about the same for next year. The SEL, that's one of the grants that Carol mentioned. That's not an entitlement grant, so I want to leave that clear. That's a grant that we can apply and we might have it or might not have it. Those are called like competitive grants, and we never know if you're gonna get those. So we cannot count on that money. That's not like an entitlement grant that yes, you're gonna have it, even though it's smaller, you're gonna have something. That's not the case here. We have to apply as a competitive grant, and we can get it or we can't. So we're gonna have to see what happens for next year. So we also have the culture music revenue, $30, and then the 2,500, which is covering the artists in residence that it was mentioned before. Those are also like, we don't know if we're gonna have it or not for next year. And then we have the rural aid, which the year before was in the 40, like about 43,000. And then in 25, we get down to 21,000. That's what we received this year. So like we are as more communities qualify for rural aid, like the money gets more spread out. So we're pretty much like the way we see things happening with other schools and everybody kind of just trying to see how they can make through the year. It seems like we're gonna be about the same for next year. And then we have the new school ventures revenue that was mentioned to you before. We had a carryover from 24 into 25, and that's why you see that big number, $94,000 there. But this is the last year, 26. Sorry?
Oh, you froze for a second, but I think you're unfrozen.
Okay, so we have the 94. Yes, can I continue? Okay. So
Yes.
we have the $94,000, and then we are down to $40,000 this year, the 26. When I say this year, is this coming year. So that's where you see the decrease in revenue there. You can go to the next slide, please. All right. Those are the expenses, the expense changes that you're gonna see for each line item, and how is that an increase line by line. I just want to go like on a high level and explain like why you're gonna see the change from one year to another year is basically because we are giving 2.5% COLA, which is cost of living for salaries for everybody. And that's really the minimum we have like from Social Security for 25. And then and the other part too is gonna be because we receive like 50% less, right, in revenues. So we have to allocate that towards the operational budget. So that's where you're gonna see majority of the change. I can walk you through line by line if you want to, or do you want to read? What do you prefer?
I personally don't have the need to hear it read line by line since we have it, but if anyone else would like to. Okay. Yeah, I think your overview was helpful, but I don't think we need line by line.
I mean, if you want to just take a glimpse at it, do you have any questions for me? Just please let me know. I'm happy to walk you through it. But the biggest highlights are the ones that I mentioned. We didn't do anything other than 2.5% increase in salary and moving money out of grants to operational because we had a 58% decrease in revenue. That's what we did, and that's why you see the increase there.
I have a question.
Yes.
Of course, I would have a question. So the budget comparisons between 25 and 26 next year that we're budgeting for, were those based on the original school committee's voted budget or transfers? So, I mean, it appears to me, having spent very little time looking at this, that the superintendent's salary increased significantly this year, that special ed grew from like 55,000 to over 115,000.
That's right.
The
Take that? And actually, we should give David.
We're
On
gonna
this,
through
yeah,
another
hold-
slide.
what you'll see too is that this column doesn't show the grants for 25. So you can't really compare these two columns. Because we don't have the grants for 25 listed here.
Yeah, so I just feel kind of lost that my first objection is all of this shilling money around to within the budget, within the year, causes a guy like me to lose track of being able to compare year to year. But I mean, and firmly in my mind is like our startup year in terms of numbers. So our IT budget was $1,500 2 years ago. And I realize that there isn't a lot of room on special needs. It is, it's based on children's assessed needs and boy, and the biggest problem I've got is why do you guys insist on saying middle school? For God's sake, we don't have a middle school. Pioneer doesn't have a middle school. There is no middle school. Lose it from your lexicon.
What would you call it?
Junior high, like the former district that we're in is a junior, senior high. There is no middle school. It's in the charter.
But I think that's fine. It also I think it translates.
No, it's
It's-
not correct. We do not have a middle school model. And Pioneer has a 3-page letter that they got 2.5 years ago with respect to moving from a junior high school to a middle school. And they were given 3 pages of conditions that they have not addressed. Pioneer is a junior high school and senior high school. That's where we send our kids. There is no middle school.
So we have that though.
You had a question about.
Well, I just, in terms of speaking, having the elevator speech for the public says, what the hell? 10% increase in the school budget? Where'd it come from? I read this thing and I didn't get it. It didn't explain it to me, so I delved in myself and I'm probably making a lot of errors. But it appears to me that the superintendent's salary went from about 30,000 to 53,000.
No.
So it's a source of funds issue?
It is a source of funds
Okay.
issue. That was a 2.5%.
IT support went in my mind from 1,500 to 13,000. What was the original budget this year for IT support before we started moving money?
Two budgets when we didn't have students, before the students started. I think we budgeted for care this year. and pretend.
So some of it, this year now.
Well,
So,
So Melissa, I think one of the things that we're running up against is the awkwardness of being able to compare this year to fiscal year 26. Because we only have the one column for fiscal year 25, we don't have an all funds budget to compare to the all funds budget for 26.
So
So it would be helpful to have that, maybe over the next few weeks, certainly before town meeting, and we'll get a copy to David.
well, when you
and
look
then the
at,
underlying concern is that, yeah, it helps out our cash flow in the short term, you know, when we can use grant money. But when these things are basically permanent parts of the budget that are met this year with grants, next year we have to meet them with our own funds. And so it's really, it's really not much relief to me. You know, I'm looking at the aggregation and those trends.
And that was one of the highlights Melissa made, is that like an effort for this year's budget has been to move those things that really shouldn't be grant funded into
yes,
our budget.
exactly.
Yeah, so in the future.
And then
it
full
is- it needs
disclosure,
dollars.
adding to the ugliness of this picture, I have massively overspent the occupancy budget. We, especially on janitorial service, and haven't faced the music on that. Don't even know the extent of it, but it is really ugly. And you know, ultimately, I'm gonna need to sort out, you know, when's it time to say no on some stuff. But I've taken the attitude that we're bringing a 25-year-old building back, and it just doesn't, it hasn't served us well to let things flap in the wind, which the prior district did. And so we discovered, you know, electric motors that were welded and running 24/7 in the ventilation system and such. So I haven't been pushing back, but the budget is consumed, and there's still months and months left in this. So I'm gonna be on the tip of the sword on that one, but it's part of the picture. Now, on the other side, another piece that isn't part of the picture is our health insurance. And my review of that is that we have expended far less than we appropriated. We appropriated based on our exposure, not even necessarily to a, you know, good guess on what the take rate was gonna be and what the real cost would be. And I'm not urging that we do anything differently because that, you know, it needs to be provided for what our potential exposure is. But those are two other areas, and we know that health insurance premiums are going up massively. And there's not much to be done. And I could also report, if anybody has the idea of, oh, let's look for another carrier. It does, well, not only is the price, but the fact is that the three options that we have, which are the GIC, which is a state system where retired teachers are, the Hampshire Insurance Group, which is our health insurance group, and the Mass Interlocal Insurance Agency. These are all group insurance, which means it's self-insurance, and there is, if you change from one insurer to the other, you end up being self-insuring for all of the hangover so for instance, if I went in on June and got a hip replacement and we changed insurance in July, the town would be on the hook for all those expenses associated with. It has to do with, there's two kinds of insurance. One's claims made and something's the other one. So we backed away and said, you know, it doesn't make sense to try to find another insurance company.
I know Athol changed from GIC, which is excellent. And what has gone with Network Blue, and it wasn't a choice. You didn't have a choice, you had to.
No, but I'm talking about the financial, I'm
Yeah.
not talking about
So
anything to do
they
with
were saving money.
nothing to do with the employees and what their druthers are. It's
Right,
from a management standpoint, sometimes you'll say, let's find another vendor. Don't.
and
don't
that's
even-
what I'm speaking
I'm-
of.
Well, what I'm speaking to is the uninsured
Mhm.
liability that you take
Mhm.
when you move from one group insurance to the other.
It's
So,
basically exposure for pre-existing.
yeah,
conditions.
the only thing I didn't consider is, well, what if for 4 months we pay two premiums? Pay the old and have the new, so that the old claims would continue. That gets costly too, so there isn't much to be done. Is what I'm.
Except schools do have there's that sign up time once a year.
The open enrollment period.
Yeah, and so it seems like some districts do make that switch.
I'm just telling you that you can't afford to make
Yeah.
the switch because you're holding the bag. You
I
become the
hear
insurance
what you're
company.
saying, but I'm thinking maybe there's something that you don't know, some little thing, because like I said, Athol just made that, and
Yeah,
they
well,
did it to save money. If they were
well,
going to
but
be,
that's a bet. When you
I
become
don't
the
know.
insurance
Yeah.
company, you're making a bet. They decided that
Yeah.
bet was worth making. I've studied it long and hard and it ain't worth it at our scale.
Yeah, no, that makes
That
sense.
make-
Thanks for explaining that. I'm gonna, so we'll make sure we get you that fuller picture, David, because that is something I would like to see too.
Yeah.
But
Well, I like to be able to speak to it,
Yeah.
you know?
All
Right, are we ready to move to the expense changes line by line for total decreases? All right, great. So here's the, and there's gonna be another slide that I want to explain. I think is gonna clarify a lot of your questions there that you had from, salary change, and I can definitely show you that, so it's gonna be a little bit more clear. So here, when you have the total decreases, you're gonna have, so we really try to do the minimum that we could possibly do for technology, resources. And when I mean technology resources, like there were a lot like curriculum, technology like Lexia and things that we use like for the students to improve their reading, their math, and like for also technology, safety purposes. As you know, that's very important. We want to make sure that we do our due diligence when it comes to uh, the safety of sharing the information from our students. So here we went line by line with our whole team, working together to see if there could be possibly anything that we could reduce. The one thing that Carol worked together with Stephen and the team was to have going from like she reduced the special, so we're gonna have a reduction in our special line. So we are gonna instead of like doing more days of the program, we reduce by half, so we could allocate more funds and towards other areas and make sure that we could reduce the line by line item. We do have some of the costs that again, this is just a high level of 25 budgeted and the 26 appropriation for this year. And when I say it's a high level, it's because just comparing one column to the other one. But the next couple of slides, you're going to be able to see where are the offsets. But just for example, if you look at the food service staff, you see the $25,000 to $11,000 from one year to another is because we are using more of the revolving funds that we have for food service to make sure we can pay for our food service staff. Okay, we do the reimbursements on a monthly basis, so we're trying to use as much as you can from the revolving line to make sure we can reduce some of the staff line. And some of the things that happen too from like when you see the increases from the prior slides is gonna be majority is gonna be moving people to, like I said, we had to do some general ledger restructure in terms of functions to be able to match what DESI had. So you're gonna be moving one line to another line to another, function. So that salary, for example, like the special ed person is not like shouldn't be like in the teacher line, should be as a director. So that you're gonna see changes like that. So sometimes one line might be a little bit more increased than other, but it's just really changing one function to align with what DESI requires from us. So on this slide here, you see a total decrease of 95,546. And those are the changes that we had on the line by line that you'll see another example, for example, that I have here on the special subject employees. That's the one I was mentioning. Like you went from 26 to 14 because we reduced the program from 4 days to 2 days per week. Okay. Then you have another person here, like ELL administrative services, that was being charged in 25 in one line for that line, but I actually changed that salary to instructional. So when you see the increase on the instructional side, which is the increase on the previous slide, you're gonna see there is actually gonna be an increase in the line for instructional, because we have changed salary to instruction, that it should be instruction, not non-instruction, because that's the nature of the job. So you're gonna have, again, all the descriptions and comments on line by line, and when are you using grants to offset, when you're not. And you're welcome to ask me any questions and follow up if you need to. And then we can move for with the next slide if you don't have any questions here.
Wanted to say something. Come here. But it was also raised by David. So there's the issue of the special education administrator. Before we even opened, we anticipated $10,000 a year for special education administrator. What we did last year, so even in the first year, that was under budget. Then this past year, we still estimated 10,000, but what I was able to do was make up the huge difference through grants. But you know that even though we're moving that into the town budget, it's really the place that it should be, because really what we did was completely under budget for that position. I think one of the things that we have learned is in some places, even though we're tiny, there isn't an efficiency of scale. So, you know, Dr. Brady, or someone like Dr. Brady, you know, in another district, you know, would be making 150 or 200,000. She is willing, as the previous person was, you know, just make a small hourly amount. We've subsidized with grants, but what we're trying to do is be more realistic. So next year, what we did was we put into the budget 25,000, which really, when you think about a position and what someone like that would be making anywhere else, you know, it's a fraction of the amount. But it's one of the things that we were able to do was shift. So she and all those other positions are no longer going to be at hourly. So if there's something enormous like hit us this year, we had an enormous special education audit early in the year. So she started and then immediately was running through her hours. And luckily, we had some grant funding that we were able to use to pay her. I don't want to run into that in the future. So we've moved it over to the town side, and two, we've increased the allocation that we've moved it to be salary rather than hourly. So just another example of like we're trying to budget smarter and conservatively smarter, but in a conservative fashion. Does that make sense?
Okay, so here's the offset that I want to show it to you. If you look at the budget from prior year, I think that it will be too big to even put the prior year to, like, this slide's gonna be too small. So like I didn't put also FY24, but like just to answer your question, for example, you're saying like, oh, it seems like the superintendent salary like went up by a lot. It really didn't. So like last year, like as you can see on this line, like the budget request was 25,725 for operational, but $25,000 of that salary was coming from a grant, which is the NSV grant. So our request as a whole is 53,556, but then we also put in 25,000 in NSV. So her salary really went up, which was like from, just to give an example, that's happening like for everybody. So last year was 52,250, and then you had 22,525 coming out of the NSV grant. This year with the COLA of 2.5%, you're gonna have the 53,556.25. So because we don't want to put everything into operational and have a big change there, we are using the NSV grant in the amount of 25,000, remembering that this is the last year we're gonna have this grant, and it's gonna go down to what we are asking, which is the 28,556 out of the operational funds. And that's happening for everybody else. So everything you look at there, you might say, oh my God, this number is like it's a big jump. It's really not. It's just because like last year in 2024, in 25, we are using the other grants, a bunch of different grants to offset salary. And we just cannot continue to do that because it's not sustainable. Like I mentioned before, grants should be used to enhance a program, not to fund operational expenditures. So here's the line for everybody in terms of the budget request on the line on the 2.5% salary increase. And then when you look at the offsets, we're showing you like what are the funds that is gonna offset each one. So for example, in the blue column there, you're gonna see the grant and revolving budget. And then the next one, it's gonna show you where is that coming from. So like, for example, our budget request was for superintendent salary 53,556, which is only 2.5% from last year. And now we're gonna use the NSV grant, and then we're only asking for 28,556. Same thing here when you come to the business admin salary. We were using last year rural aid, but guess what? Rural aid, we received less than 20, like less than we actually had over a 50% reduction this year in how much we received from 24 to 25, which was a big surprise for everybody. And then we are offsetting the business admin salary with only $5,000 from rural aid this year. So it's bringing down to, total of $20,000 request. Then you ask about IT support. That's a good question. So here we go. We have in IT support, we're only requesting in budget in FY25, we're only requesting 1,500 because everything else was being supported from grants, which we don't have that much grants for this year. So we really requesting only $13,000 to pay for IT support. And then we're gonna fund $8,000 out of rural aid, which is gonna leave $5,000 for the operational funds. And the next one that I have that we're offsetting is the special ed department head. As I mentioned before, there is nothing here, as you can see in FY25 budget, because she was being charged to a no-instructional function, and as a special ed director, she should really be, as DESI requests, a special ed department head on 2110. That's her code for DESI. So I've changed her. So it's not because she didn't exist last year. It's because we have moved her to the correct line. So she's coming with a salary of $25,000, and we are funding part of that salary, $5,000 with the NSV grant and $5,000 with the rural aid grant. So we're only requesting $15,000 for operational purposes. Any questions here so far? We can move along.
I don't know how you did that.
All right, so when we continue here, is also just a continuation of what we're just talking about. We're still within elementary budget here, and then you're gonna see all the salaries is not really pretty much everything is gonna be for salaries 2.5% increase, and then it's gonna show you again, for example, the school leadership administrative assistant, we are offsetting part of the cost. You're gonna say, oh, that's a little bit higher than 2.5%. Yes, it is, because we also have an administrative assistant that is helping with clerical services that she was being charged to the grant, and a portion of her salary was moved here because she does clerical services on a daily basis, so she needs to be charged to that 2210 account. So then it brings the total line to $65,000, but again, they're only receiving 2.5% increase each. We're not doing anything crazy here. is just because like I have to move clerical services for the admin out of grant to this line into the operational. And then we are offsetting by $5,000 coming from IDA, which is our entitlement grant. We are only requesting that matter $60,000 for that line. Regular ed teachers, we also on that line, we are offsetting with some of the NSV grant because we have 40,000, remember, so we are offsetting a lot of salaries with the NSV grant, which is not gonna happen probably, like it's not gonna happen for 27. We're gonna have to bring it to the budget and see if we have any other grants coming in. We have the speech OPT, right? Then we have $5,000 coming from IDA. This number, if you look at here, it looks like it went down, but like some of the people that were being charged there, again, like we're just trying to see like where we are this year and see what the school really needed and try to reduce to the minimum that we could. So that's why you see a slight decrease there. And we are only requesting $20,000 for the appropriation budget. School psychology, it's 22 that you see over there. $1,000 you kept the same. Subs, we only allocated $6,000 for subs in 25, and the actuals for this year is way higher. We had teachers leaving. We needed more subs, so that line was very understated for the prior year. So we are bringing that up because as the school progresses, we want to make sure we can have subs and our students can have a teacher that can come into the classroom and sub for the classes, subs for PEs, sub even for if they need some sort of clerical or admin services if somebody gets sick. So we want to make sure that that line represents what more closely with what we have in terms of actions for this year. And then we have the special ed instructional aids. We are using, so pretty much that line went up, and because we do have in 25, we started the pre-kindergarten, the preschool program. We actually had a teacher that was being charged to a contingency account, and we had to bring her out of contingency because contingencies really should be used for any additional special ed services we have, something that we're not expecting. Maybe we have more of the projected number of students that are new this year, so we're gonna have to allocate more funds to it. Therefore, you're gonna see that line increasing by $24,000 and about $750, and we are offsetting a lot of that with the pre-K revolving account. With the estimated revenues that I've shown in previous slides. So we are only requesting 51 from the appropriation budget, being pretty close to what you had appropriating FY25. Next slide, please. All right, here we are looking to the 2000s with the instruction lines and 3000s, which is like pretty much is gonna be our transportation. And as you can see, that is not a huge change from one year to another. You might see more instructional software and licenses there. You see, you went from like $1,800 to $5,500 because some of those softwares were being charged in the prior year into like non-instructional, but they are really instructional, so we just allocated to where it belongs. But other than that, like for example, you're gonna see a number that wasn't there, like the $8,000 in transportation 7D bus is because we started to operate our minibus, so we need to pay the driver for 2026. And there, what else we see here that wasn't there? So then we're gonna have some 7D bus expenses, the $2,088. And again, this all relates to transportation because we started operating our minibus. So that's why you're gonna see expenses there that were not there in the prior year. Food services staff, again, we are allocating part of it to our revolving account. And what else? And I guess like in the contingency account, we in 2025 we requested $20,000, and this year we only going to request $17,000 because we need to that's a number that need to be within 2% of the net school spending. So that's why we are requesting only 17,000 for contingency in case something happens, a new student comes in, or something that we need. Next, please. And here's the, I'm gonna say middle school, high school, but it should be junior high, I've heard. We can change that. So that's the part where the tuition that we pay for students to go to Pioneer. We had 2 new students coming this year. And we had to make sure we have every tuition, like it's about $18,000, $18,500 for every single student that we send there. So this year we are allocating we're only making sure that we have at least for one more student, 1.5, honestly. That's why we are requesting $287,000 there. And then we have the other lines, pretty much as you can see, does not change much. It's just per our contract with our transportation company. So that's why you see 36 into 37 now that we're asking. And the high school special education transportation, we didn't see the need this year, but we still want to have something there in case a new need comes, during the year of 26. So we cannot just have that line with nothing there because we don't know what could happen next year. And maybe we have now a special education student that needs a different sort of transportation. And then we have the next slide, please. So that's the budget total. You see there the you see 1,185,497. That's a 10.8% increase based on everything we have discussed. I do have other slide that I think, so this is the percentage increase. We started the budget way higher. We have had a lot of meetings trying to bring this down as much as possible, trying to cut programs as much as possible, and by moving a lot of the revenue that we did not receive from one year to another into the appropriation budget, which within general fund. That's why you're gonna see that increase of 10.8%. And then I think there's one more slide, please. Okay, so here's very important that I want to show, because it's important to see where the money is going. If you really think about this, you have 80% really going towards instructional, because 55% is going to instructional for the elementary school. But when we send these students like the middle school, high school tuition, when you send them to Pioneer, so if you add those up, you're really having like the biggest portion is going to go towards instructional. We have almost like no instructional, is only 6%, which is the admin services. We have like 1%, a little bit over in contingency, and transportation is 13% of our costs. Next. Okay, I think I'll leave this to Dana. Do you want to go over the enrollment? Or do you want me to continue? Yeah, if nobody has any other questions, that before I move along, do you have any questions for me? I'm happy to answer any follow-up emails as well if you need to. I'm happy to answer any emails or questions you may have later once you look at this again.
I don't have questions.
No questions.
So I'll talk just a tiny bit about enrollment. One of the things I've noticed about enrollment is that it is continuing to shift, but this is our current prediction. I tried to build a spreadsheet that would do the math for us, because as Carol finds new folks to pull into the school, I want the math to be done ahead of time. Elaine, if you want this, I can also send it to you electronically.
I have it now.
So, what I will say is that pre-K in particular is certainly still shit. And at least for David, we know our foundation number, what the state really looks at, is doing a lot of calculations for support and needs. Does include pre-K students at a half each.
Mm.
So, it isn't, the pre-K number is not included in the total that you see on the right-hand side until you get to that bottom right-hand corner. Because it's a noticeable part of the folks who are in our, and as it is growing from this year to next year, it definitely has an impact on what our foundation.
And is the program part-time for kids or full-time?
Till 8 years. So,
Mhm.
certain families choose part,
Mhm.
certain families choose full.
Okay,
So this is not our foundation aid, this is our snapshot, is how things look right now.
mhm.
We also have the October 1 number, so what we'll see is that what the part that the state really looks at is gonna lag behind a little bit more than this number, but this is our way of just predicting of how many folks are gonna be in the building. And it is a constantly changing number. We are continuing to hope that school choice will become an option for us. But in the meantime, we are continuing to grow because of out of state, because of the school.
Where are we with respect to hold harmless? Because the state used to artificially high number to start out and put us in our next year in hold harmless, meaning we got the same amount of aid. You know what that number is and how many we need to add to get out of hold harmless?
Don't know that number.
A comment on the subject, I would, my analysis was that, the fact that we, unlike Pioneer, weren't in hold harmless or don't have to double our school age population, our foundation, in order to get out of hold harmless, it puts us in what, $6,700 in local aid per kid, which, sort of lines up as school choice would to the elementary school. But then I got thinking about it a little more, and chances are that if we see 6 kids in our school district, half of them are going to be junior and senior high school age, and we're going to have to pay full boat tuition. So don't have a party when we add kids. It really, unless there's school choice or tuition, they probably aren't helping the picture. Our advantage is our tiny size, and our work at the capital planning group is, looking at these long-term trends some, and the gut feeling of people involved is that we're not going to see rapid change in our numbers, because folks like me moved here 40 years ago and don't go away. You too.
We're too old to have kids.
Well, no, but we aren't moving out until we die. Well, and that does, that has happened. The state has changed the accessory dwelling unit
Mhm.
rules, and in part as a way to increase the housing stock. And if everybody in town added an accessory dwelling unit, how that would come in. The rule, though, is that it can be half the size of the existing house up to a maximum of 900 square feet. So if you live in a little house like mine, you don't get to build a very big.
Right.
You don't even get to build the 900 square foot accessory dwelling unit. But I am aware of these units that have been, legally built in town over the last 10 years, and they provide income to, the whole original idea was, some place so that old people can move in, or somebody can move in with them and help care for them. They also become a revenue source for folks, and we can probably see that happening in our community over time. How it's going to impact the school, I don't know, but the law of averages is half our kids are going to end up being older than our elementary age and are going to be a financial hit. And I would.
Stu is a more complicated picture, and that is also shifting. How many go to Franklin Tech?
Well,
shifts?
that was the next thing on my mind. How do we reflect that? We're a school district. We're not the Community School District. We're the Warwick School District
There
and the
is
Warwick
a
Community.
complicated, longer version of this.
Yeah,
And there's a couple of things I'll say to that. One is that we have a number of kids going to Monmouth. And that's likely to increase for next year. We've always had a healthy number going to Franklin Tech. Of all the kids who live in Warwick, 25% either homeschool or go to private, most of it being homeschool. So, that is another thing to keep in mind, and I've already mentioned this to Carol and her staff, is that if we provide any support at all for any of those homeschool students, they then become part of our foundation number. So there are still some shifts going on, and Carol and Stephen have been focusing on making sure that as our elementary school kids get older, they are aware of the breadth of opportunities.
Yeah. And tech school costs us a little less than,
Notice pay less, well, it's complicated because they're.
I don't
not-
understand the formula from
Then
year
they're
to
not
year.
foundation.
Ah, okay,
I've done the math.
gotcha.
But, we save a lot of money if kids choose smaller. You also, for perimeters is only 14,000 here instead of 18. That's a big.
Gets so complex.
Yeah.
But that shifts every year.
Yeah.
And that's part of what the big picture shows, is that we're losing more out of our chapter 70 because of charter this year than we did last year. And that's not a change in kids, it's a change in the formula.
Right.
Well, I also have a question that David brought up several months ago. And I don't know if this is the time, but it's about the budget or not. After school and summer programs have been paid for through a grant, and that's going to stop. So that will also be adding into the budget.
Not into the school budget, but into the town budget.
Yeah, into the town budget. I'm wondering, when I've worked at other districts, they usually had someone that wrote grants. It was part of their job to fund those things. And every year it seems like, I know there's less and less opportunity to write, the federal government is not going to be helping with this. But is that a feasibility? Because along with accepting a larger budget, it's not like summer school is a great necessity. It's always been a great thing to have. After school programs are not a great necessity, but it's a good thing to have.
It helps our transportation budget to have after school.
Yeah, but and it's a nice thing.
And we've gotten several hundreds of thousands of dollars on the basis of COVID and on the basis of its impact on children. And so it was almost token what we brought to bear. Now we have appropriated enough money to get us through the summer.
Yeah, and I remember you saying that, and
Twice,
so
actually.
looking forward to a different or better way or supplementary, is that feasible that becomes part of someone's job
Grant
description?
feasibility is anybody's guess, but I am extremely pessimistic and I think I have good reason to be.
Well, yeah, it is hard, but
No, I don't mean hard. I mean, the federal government is the
Yeah.
source of a lot of public
yes, that's what I
taxpayer
mean.
supported funding and we don't even follow judges' orders necessarily.
Yeah.
We're in very uncertain times.
So what I'm thinking of, because I worked for BU in Chelsea, they funded a load of stuff. They just came in and changed what was happening in the Chelsea school system. And they had one person who only wrote grants. And that's how they got so much money in. Some was federal. Yeah, Cambridge did that also. I used to live out there. So I know that it can be done. I was thinking, can like Harvard be hit up? BU be hit up? Or funding Wellesley
So
for funding?
the indirect rate on universities is typically established around 50%, and the federal government and Elon Musk just announced that they're capping it at 15% for indirect. So that this is having a massive
Mhm.
effect on research and
Yeah.
just basic support at universities. Universities,
For just said, anyone who makes under 200,000, I think.
yeah, well, we don't
Is
all
the
have
rate.
Harvards endowment.
No, no, but these
Meanwhile, the
schools
stock market's
sometimes
shit.
like to come out, have a little project.
Well, here's what I'll say, like, I'm always interested in grants and partnerships.
Yep.
I mean, you and cause we're looking at the grant writer.
Okay,
I would be happy to do that with you.
yeah, and I want you to know, the only grants I've written are the really simple ones.
That's okay, it's all right.
Yeah, and actually there was one grant that was written for the summer program, not last year, the year before, to supplement programs.
Because you could help, I mean, I write fiction and poetry, I don't write grants.
Sorry.
But you could, I mean, you could really talk it up, perhaps. I can imagine Harvard thinking it, they own Harvard Forest, that's in Petersham, and they have that whole, they may have some interest in having a laboratory school out in the sticks, you know?
Just hard to ask.
It doesn't hurt to ask, and
Done very well asking so far.
yeah.
David, did you have a thought?
Well, I just think first off, it's, while it's appealing to try to, plug ordinary budget items with grant money, it's a losing proposition from an ask standpoint, and it's a dangerous place to be because it goes away and then you're stuck with it. So we really should be using grants for ancillary and building on things. You know me, Elaine, I'm not known as a very much of a conservative. I am extremely worried about public grants that are made on a reimbursement basis.
Mhm.
The ice is getting really thin. So for instance,
Mhm.
we have a reservation of over $50,000 for digital equity work, and we haven't signed a contract yet. I'm worried about us going out there and spending money on this and then being left unreimbursed. So that's another part of the whole grant piece.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of our work needs to be trying to figure out how to live within our means and make it happen,
Well,
because I think we have a
we
very
already are
special
not living
opportunity.
within
here.
our means.
We have a very special opportunity here to do a very good job on these small numbers of kids we have, and will probably continue to
Mhm.
have. And I think we can get local support for that, but getting somebody else to pay for it, especially in this environment, I'm very skeptical of.
I agree, it's unlikely, but
And this district has done a hell of a good job bringing in grant money.
it has,
So
and
far.
right now, things, as you have said, are extremely hard. And when you look at our town budget, not the school budget, people are really stretched thin. My taxes went up last year, $800 the year before. I'm sure everybody else's went up big chunks.
No, it's just you.
Just,
Thank you, Elaine, for doing that.
We
work.
appreciate your support.
but you know, it's sort of where, who would write a grant? People aren't gonna write a grant for that fire truck.
There aren't grants for.
No, that's what I said.
Well, actually, there are to extremely disadvantaged communities, and there is a small amount of money out there.
But
We've got.
what I'm saying is we have other expenses. It's not just the school's budget that's scraping by, it's other things as well, and it's hard. We've really scraped by. We used to have the dump open more than once a week. That was really exciting when you could go to the dump.
We still do.
Well, in the summer.
No,
For half a
we've
day.
actually extended the hours from April sometime
Oh.
to past Labor Day.
But at any rate, we are good at trying to figure out how to make the money, what I'm saying. We're good at trying
We
to
lose money
make it
there.
go.
Dump, we lose money hand over fist,
Yeah, But,
15, 20,000 a year.
I think the overarching theme here, is anyone has suggestions on how to augment our budget, Carol and the school committee are certainly welcome
Yeah.
to the suggestions and the help to do it,
yeah,
right? So nobody is gonna turn away people
Yeah.
willing to help.
So we, you know, we could even ask people in town, who do you know, who do you know, what companies do you have contacts with? I think in Irving, they got new computers every several years because someone knew somebody at a computer company, and they turned over their computers every year. And different public school districts got their computers. So it's kind of knowing about things like that, and they saved a huge amount of money.
The key to contributed resources though is first and foremost doing it locally.
Yeah,
The plan of trying to get somebody else to pay our bills is just a loser, but when we can lead by example locally and then pivot off that. But for you coming and matching the money we have put together locally, that can work some.
yeah,
And
and it
could-
does, I
yeah.
mean, but we did that at Head Start.
Well, and I mean,
Federal
as
funding had to be matched.
I gave a 1% of my income last year to Democrats to try not to have the president elected. And now I can do something else with that money, having lost that bet.
Yeah, you did. But I don't want to take up
Yeah.
more time
But
on
you-
that.
That is part
thought
of
that
what,
was-
even though there's not a lot of people in the room, we're recording this, always reaching out. to the
Yeah.
best of our ability, so that everybody knows, because it's amazing what folks have done. Is this, I don't remember, is this our last slide?
Yes.
So let's go ahead and wrap up the public hearing portion.
Yeah, well, and thank you too for coming and participating, and to anyone who watches this video online. And like they said earlier, if there's anything else you want to share, you can reach out to any of us in the room or come into school and talk to people. We'd love to hear any feedback, and then we will actually be voting on the budget at our next meeting, which is March 26th, 4:15.
Well, she's scary, the amount of stuff she can.
Oh, she's
Brilliant.
brilliant.
I want her to balance my checkbook. Yeah. Well, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Nobody balances their checkbook anymore. You just look at the computer.
It's true, I balanced it in years, yeah, I just assume it's empty at the end of the month, and I start from
Is it near where I
scratch.
think it should be?
Yeah.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah.
Great, thank you for having me. Have a great night, everyone.
Tell me your last.
Oh, I'm Miranda. Nice to meet you.
And you can find our email addresses if you go to the school's webpage under the school committee part. That webpage actually has a ton of stuff,
Yes,
but it does include.
Bots haven't found you. We had to take them all off the town website.
yeah, I'd love to talk to you about that. I don't know any wealthy people, sadly, or.
Okay.
That's why when I saw Harvard did that, I thought maybe they'd be interested,
Yeah.
because that happened. My last little thing, he got in trouble, but there was a famous person from Star of TV that gave a lot of money to UMass and set up a really good thing for teachers to go into Athol. Teacher trainers, and he just brought a lot of money into this city of Athol before he got in trouble for something else.
It was nice to finally meet you. Take
Good to
care.
meet you all.
I think you want to be about.
Adam Holloway,
I keep on seeing your name all over the place. Nice to meet you.
likewise,
Adam,
they're gonna spell me.
No, you've been
Interesting.
good here from the get-go.
Sure.
I thought it might be you. So thanks.
Thanks, Elaine.
I think it's time for that end of the evening motion.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Wait, stop.